So firstly, welcome everybody in person. I won't do the introduction again, we'll save that for the people joining online. But in case you weren't aware, we have particularly young people from around the world joining online for this session as well. And so please have a little bit of patience with us too. There might be some connection issues, so forth along the way. We also have Brendan, who'll be Randy's colleague, who'll be presenting online too. And then feel free, we'll be going up until the hour, and there'll be plenty of time after the session. We're going to be having a little bit of a tour of the building for those who want to. There's also a place for some interviews, but most importantly, the run of show for the afternoon starts downstairs at 3 o'clock, and we highly recommend you to be there for that. It's going to be brilliant. So without further ado, we'll start welcoming people online, and we'll give them a warm welcome. Bear with me. Okay, super. Let's see who's on. Yeah.
Oh.
Welcome everyone joining online. I'm going to put the chat up so we can see it.
Okay, I will. You need the second mic, maybe.
Welcome. Maybe we give a round of applause from those in person, for those joining online. Welcome again. We have colleagues from India, from Ireland, from Portugal, I can see from Japan. For those of you joining online from the US, hey Richard, please introduce yourself in the chat where you're calling from. We are in person, I think we're past around 60 in person. We've just shared some food together, and we're so happy to welcome you into this session today. First things first, my name is Stevenette, or Edward Stevenette, as I'm formally on the Zoom. And I am part of the international team here at LearningPlanet Institute, particularly focusing on this phrase of how can we co-design the future of learning with youth. And it is through that that we had the joy of meeting Randy, who's going to introduce himself in a second, and the amazing team at Notion, also Brandon, who's joining us online as well. We can give a wave, exactly. We met together through our LearningPlanet Youth Design Challenge, and it set out from my idea of can we invite young people around the world, many of which are online as well, to propose their idea of a learning program for their dream school or university. So we've had this year, we had over 1,000 people sign up from around the world. We had almost 300 incredible submissions. We had an incredible jury, and it's through that that we also got to know Randy as kind of the design head on our jury, working very hard over the past weeks to select our finalists and winners. And as a heads up, tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock, there will be the announcement of the finalists and really celebrating the challenge from this year. There'll also be a watch party here on the 5th floor for anybody wanting to join the fun from here. But we wanted to continue this opportunity and this phrase around designing the future of learning with youth by giving the chance to Randy, to Brandon, who have been so thankful for your time as well, to take us through a little bit how we might connect key methods of design that has made Notion, which many of you can raise your hand if you use Notion on a day-to-day basis. But Brandon, for those, there's quite a number in person and also online, you can mention that too. But it's made Notion one of the most popular tools for productivity, for collaboration, for students, particularly around the world. So I'll be sharing about a bit more about that. But without further ado, pass to yourself first, Randy, to take us away.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Yes, thanks, Artemis. I'll introduce myself very briefly. Brandon will do the same. We'll get right into it. I lead the design team at Notion. There's probably about 20 people today. Inside organizations, it's maybe what 900 or so people around the world. And Notion's had a very opinionated point of view about design for a long time, even before I arrived in the organization. So it's a sort of lucky environment for someone like myself to work in. But a couple of important things to know about design at Notion. There's a couple of these key principles we'll come back to in a minute, but really simplicity, modularity, and the spirit that everyone can build, or everyone should be empowered to build, are sort of like really key principles for us. So I'll come back to those in a few minutes, and then I'd love to hand it over to Brandon.
And Randy, just if you speak directly into the mic as loudly as you can as well. And we're raising the mic for those online, we're raising it a little bit more. So you should be able to hear it a bit clearer too.
Okay, no problem. Well, now I'm going to hand it to Brandon. You only missed me talking about myself, so the important stuff's to come.
Yeah. Thanks, Randy. Thanks, Edward. Thanks, everyone. I'm Brendan. I'm a solution engineer with Notion. So going to work alongside Randy, but separate a little bit in the fact that my job is to speak to our customers and our community about their requirements. And what I do then is I take their requirements and I turn them into solutions. And those solutions could be templates, they could be workflows, they could be many things. Now, if we don't have a template or a workflow that fits the bill, I then work with the engineering team to build something. So there's a lot of creativity in my job too. And to echo Randy's point about everyone being able to build and having a modular solution, my job is fun in the fact that what I can do is I get to be creative with what I can build in Notion. So that's pretty much the broad strokes of what I do. So what I'm hoping to show you today is how we can use Notion, or how you guys can use Notion to showcase, we say, some tools and some maybe blocks that you can use then in your work going forward. So we'll have a quick demo at some stage here, but that's pretty much what I'm here for today. So thanks for having me.
Okay, so we're going to ping pong this back and forth like this. So far, I think it's working okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. But we will improvise if needed. So I'm going to come back to these few ideas of the simplicity, the modularity, and this idea that everyone can build. One of the sort of founding ideas at Notion was that in some way, software sort of got off track. Somewhere between the 70s and a handful of years ago, the world of software, a lot of the tools that were available to us, the principles of sort of open source, principles of empowerment, of everyone being able to make most things we use ended up in sort of walled gardens. Interoperability between systems kind of went away. So if you're in the room are old enough to remember the heydays of the early internet and then the Web 2 movement, and there's a number of sort of moments in time in which it felt like the power of the internet was much in the hands of the user, and it's kind of gone away. And so we take a lot of inspiration from the early days of software in the 70s, so the sort of founding sort of software visionaries, and we think that really anyone should be able to use software as easily as picking up a piece of paper and using a pen or pencil. I don't know if we've achieved it yet, but that is the pursuit. Right? And so one of the pursuits is the simplicity. The other is this idea of the modularity. And I think this relates at a conceptual level in many things you're probably doing in your own lives or your own projects. The idea that different things can fit together different ways to end up with different outcomes. But each one of those individual things are actually pretty simple. That any complex thing is a collection of many much simpler things. And so what we'll share with you today is, I think, some of both the mystery and magic of how that works, because sometimes things are seem very complex, but you can sort of break them down and make them easier to work with. And sometimes they seem very simple on the surface, and you may not understand the power that sits underneath. And we're going to give you some examples, really applied examples inside Notion of something that appears simple or easy and is quite powerful. And some things that are quite powerful, we'll show you how easy they are to do. And so that we'll run through some sort of specific features in action. I think we're going to do some live building. So there's a small element of risk. That makes it fun. Then we're going to have time for Q&A and questions. We're actually going to source those questions through some other tools in Notion to kind of show you how that works. And so we'll be able to take that second half opportunity to really adjust the content and tune into your own interests or questions, whether they're really deep in the tool, whether they're a little more conceptual outside. If you have thoughts about the projects you're working on now, we're happy to be dynamic with those questions. Then I'll come to the second half. Everything, can I get a few thumbs up? That all sounds good? Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and hand it to Rondon. And we're going to get this live building part of this experience going. And I think it's going to be fun.
Okay. Thanks, Randy. I'm going to share my screen, guys. So I'm not quite sure how this is going to work in relation to this audience here, but if everyone online can maybe, or some people online can just put their hand up to say that they can see the screen, and the same in the audience in Paris as well. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, great. Okay, it's lovely. Nice reactions there. Right, so let's think about what Randy just said there about Notion and the high level principle of Notion itself, about the fact that somewhere along the line, software design and the creation of product got off track a little bit. Everything from a SaaS perspective became very on rails. You would buy a tool for a very, very specific use case. If I wanted a CRM, I would buy a CRM tool. If I wanted a project management tool, I would buy a project management tool. And before long, what we had then was we had organizations and individuals who were using multiple different tools for lots of different things. So if we think about our own phones and the fact that we have a huge amount of applications on the phone, each of these applications do different things. Notion's ethos really, and this stems from design all the way up to product creation, is the idea of the block, the idea of the building block itself, like Lego, having simple blocks that you could create anything from. Now, the key to having these blocks, of course, the fact that having these blocks in isolation is all well and good, but it's how we put these blocks together. It's how we can reconfigure and configure and mix these blocks up to create our own tools. And this is really where we want to go. We want to go to a point where every individual, everyone online on the Zoom call right here, everyone in the audience in Paris can create their own tools. You create your own specific tools to your own requirements. So how does that start? So we're going to work on a very, very simple demo today. Some of you guys are seasoned Notion users, so what you're going to see here is going to be quite straightforward. However, hopefully it will give you some ideas in relation to what's possible within Notion. So where do we start? Well, it all starts with a database. So what I've done is I've taken a subset of the competition entries that we've had for this competition. And we can see here that this was just imported from a CSV. I have my ID, I have my URL, I have the entry title, the purpose, I have the members, the email addresses, etc. And this is fine. This is all well and good. This is a very, very straightforward example of just, a database within Notion. But what Notion has done is it's democratized the idea of the database. And what does that mean? What it means is prior to this, databases were seen as these technical, inaccessible things that specialists created. They created relations between databases. They used code to make sure these databases did something. And what Notion has done is it simplified the whole thing, whereby we can just create a database on the fly. So we have a database right here. This is great, but what can we do with this database? Can we create some kind of a dashboard based on this database? Can we use the blank canvas that Notion provides and the blocks that Notion provides to create something within the sandbox? So let's try that. Okay, so we see this database right here. We see that we have our entries and columns. This is not new to anyone. This is pretty straightforward. But let's make it a bit more visually appealing, first of all. So the first thing we could do is we could maybe change it to a gallery view. And that's fine. I can see my blocks right here, but I still can't see much that make it any more accessible. So I might make some modifications to my layout. So within gallery here, I might change my card preview to a page cover. That looks a bit better. I might change my size to small. Good. Okay. Nice. Okay. So I have something here now that shows me something that, you know, to my eyes is a bit more visually appealing and a bit more understandable. But I still have just my IDs inside here and my little image. What else can I do? Well, I can add maybe some more properties. So maybe let's add a theme inside here, which is good. I like that. Maybe let's put the title inside there too. Okay, nice. Okay, right. So what I have now is I have a nice visually appealing database. I can see something in a different way. And this is one thing that Notion does. It surfaces your information in many different ways. So this is one way where I have a nice gallery view right here. Now, what else can we do? How else can we make this more accessible? How can we make this from a design perspective more of an appealing thing? Well, what we could do is we could add charts. So once again, within the database itself, I can quickly just create a nice chart right here. And this chart seems to be based on theme. So let's tidy up this chart a little bit. I can do is I'll omit my 0 values. Maybe change my view name to theme. Yeah, that seems okay. There we go. And what I have here now is I have a nice workable chart, which shows me, based on the themes of the competition entries, the number of entries that are based on engagement, the number that are based on flourishing, and the number that are based on sustainability. Okay, that's one nice chart. Let's add another one. That's part of our dashboard. But let's change this one a little bit. As opposed to a bar chart, let's make a nice donut chart. We've already covered off theme, so let's add country inside here. Okay, nice. So we can see here that with the small subset of data that I have, I can see the breadth of entries right here. I can see entries from Canada, from Pakistan, from Australia, from everywhere around the world, and I can see it right in front of me. So coming from this simple table right here, this simple database, I now have a nice gallery view, I now have my theme, and I now have my chart. So I can visualize this data in different ways. That's fine. Let's take this a step further though. Let's think about how we can maybe add data to this database. Traditionally in Notion, what we had to do, or traditionally in databases, we had to add a new entry down here. But let's see if we can do something else here. So we might create a form. So what I can do is I can auto create a form based on this particular database entry. I'll create my 9 questions inside here. And I call this competition entries. This is right here. Let's add a nice icon here. Yeah, that looks good. Little light bulb. And I will add a cover as well to make my form a bit more appealing. Let's see what we have here. Maybe something that might be good. Yeah, that's nice. Great. Okay, so I have my cover. I have my form inside here. Let's start tidying up this form. So we don't need ID. So let's delete that. We should auto create that. Member's name. Let's remove that as well. But we have country, purpose, theme, description. Great. Okay, so I have a form inside here now that works. Great. So what I have now very, very quickly in the space of, I'm guessing about 7 minutes there, is I've taken this database here with all of my data and I've added to it. I've changed how things view, changed how things look from a layout perspective. I've added tangible reporting to this data as well. I've created charts from a theme perspective and from a country perspective. And finally, then I have my form as well, which allows me to enter details of the competition. Now that's fine, but this is all in one particular layout here. So let's see if we can make this layout a bit more visually appealing and get a bit more creative with this. So let's create a heading down here. We'll call this dashboard. Nice little underline there. And let's think about how we want to lay this out. Okay. So we'll do 2 columns here, first of all. And we'll start moving things around the place. So I don't need this table here, but I would like to maybe start off with the form or start off with the gallery itself. Start off with the gallery. What I can do is I can copy a linked view of the database, and I can then create my dashboard right underneath here. So there's my dashboard. And on the right-hand side here, let's add our charts. That sounds like a nice thing to do. So we'll add our theme chart first of all. I'll copy a link to my chart here. Move it over here. That's good. Great. And I might do another chart underneath here as well. And that's my country chart, maybe theme as well here. And I will copy that as well. Copy the chart right down here as well. So there we go. Now we have a nice layout here where I can see the data that's relevant to me in the database. I can see then on the right-hand side here that I have these nice charts. Maybe I don't want the title inside here too, but let's hide that title and make things a bit cleaner. Great. Okay, nice. Okay, so I have a nice layout here. And what I might do as well then is I might just take the form and do something with that. So let's preview that form quickly here, see if we're happy with everything here. Yeah, looks good. Copy a link to that form. And then let's embed the form maybe here. Embed that. Right, so now I have my database, I have my charts, and I have my form. Because this is a sandbox, because Notion is so flexible in relation to how I want to lay things out, I might be too happy with where the form is here, so I can just drag it up here. Put it somewhere else. There we go. Competition entries sounds pretty good. Right, so I have a workable form right here. I have a dashboard that contains my database entries, and then of course I have my charts that relate to it too. So what we've done doesn't seem like much, but it's actually quite interesting and quite important in the grand scheme of how databases used to be. To do all of this up to now, up to the last few years certainly, would have required, you know, an engineer to speak to someone. You'd need to set up some kind of a presence from a form perspective to set up the form, and then you would need maybe another engineer to look at the charts to see how we could visualize things. But within Notion itself, by using simple blocks, these blocks of course being databases, charts, forms, what we can do is we can create a dashboard really, really quickly. But let's put it to work right now. So let's enter the competition. I know entries have closed, but we'll add one now for the purpose of the demonstration. So countries Ireland, purpose, creativity in Notion, URL will be notion.so. The theme is engagement, description. How can we use Notion in our day? Title, activity in Notion. Put in my email address. And the members will be Rondon and Randy. And I'll submit that entry. So I've submitted the entry to the form right here. What I should see here is I should see an entry from Ireland along the way somewhere around here. And I should also see my entry. Now, of course, it wouldn't be a demonstration without an issue with this, but we'll find something in any case. Now, so what we have right here, of course, is we have our competition entry. We have my response inside here. There it is, new submission, etc., things like that. Okay. Now, so from here, what we have is we have a workable form. We have our competition entries inside here. We have our dashboard inside here as well. And this is our new submission here. Okay, got a new page here. But let's think about something else in relation to this submission. Let's think about how we could maybe, yeah, this is a creativity in Notion right here. Okay, let's think about how we could maybe add to this. One of the important themes, of course, that you guys have is co-design. And from a Notion perspective, co-design kind of works into co-working as well, and how we can actually work together on something. So let's imagine that myself and Randy have this new submission to the competition. It's about creativity in Notion. The purpose is to talk about how we can use Notion in our day-to-day, how we can unleash our creativity by using all of these blocks and this blank canvas to create something wonderful. Let's see what we can do here. So Randy's in France at the moment. I'm in Dublin. We need to have a conversation about this. So I might just say something like, hi, Randy. I'm going to add to this. Add to this subject. No, what Randy doesn't know is that I can be quite lazy about these things. So as opposed to writing things out here, thinking about how we can use Notion in our day-to-day, which is my job, I can decide to rush through it here and I can say, well, maybe we can just generate something inside here. So I could say something like maybe brainstorm some ideas. Yeah. Come up with ideas around how we can use Notion in our day-to-day. And from here, then, of course, what Notion AI is going to do is it's going to create some maybe ideas for me. So around personal organization, professional use, creative applications, collaborative uses, etc., unique applications. Okay, Happy with that. That's fine. And because I've let Randy know right here, and because we have a nice common thread going on within the page itself, we can keep track of each other's work. We can comment on each other's work. We can see what we're happy with. We can see what we need to change. But once again, we can then work from a co-design perspective directly within Notion itself. And this is all within one entry inside here. And if we think about the breadth of entries that you have here and the co-working that you're doing with your fellow teammates in relation to all of these competition entries, you can use Notion and you can comment on the entries itself and you can make changes directly on the fly within the database. Okay. So once again, in the space of, I'm guessing 15 minutes here now, what we've done is we've created a pretty nice dashboard that's going to cover off everything that we need around the competition. Now, let's move on to how this might look if we spent a bit more time in it. What we could do is we could, add a nice introduction inside here. We could have a working form. We could explain what the form does, along with some nice images on the left-hand side. We could lay out our database in a very, very nice way. We could then explain what the databases do on the right-hand side here. And we can do a bit more with our data analysis. We can be a bit more sophisticated around the analysis itself. We can add a few more bits and pieces to the analysis. So we can see here, these are the total entries inside here and what the breakdown looks like. And of course, we can break this down by multiple teams, multiple countries, multiple different times. Whatever data items we have within the database, we can of course create a chart on. And then finally, we can maybe analyze something. So from an analysis perspective, what we could do here is we could analyze all of the entries to spot some trends. So we might say something like, based on the data in databases, what are the key trends in the flourishing entries for this competition? Ask it to quickly generate. And what it's going to do is it's going to say that there's a strong emphasis on creative solutions, active outreach, inclusivity, sustainability, technology integration. We could do then, of course, do the same thing with other themes inside here on the fly right here to get some ideas around how things work inside here. And then finally, as I explained too, we can then talk about brainstorming. And from a brainstorming perspective, what we can do around commenting on the page itself and things like that. Okay. So that's a really, really straightforward dashboard idea. But if we go back to where this started from, this all started from one little thing, which is this database, just having a data set that we can work with. And from that data set, we can then create wonderful things. We can create many forms, we can create charts, we can lay out our data in different ways, and we can then, of course, work together on this data in a nice, organized fashion. And that's really what Notion is all about. It's all about taking these building blocks and creating whatever you want. So, as I said, this is a simple example for what you can do. And this is the point that Randy is making here. It's about putting these tools in the hands of the user, you creating your own tools, you creating your own templates, creating your own dashboards. And the important point about creating your own templates and your own dashboards is that we have a wonderful community that does just that. So if we look at the templates here within our marketplace, what we can see is we have a huge amount of people who are creating their own templates, both from a learning perspective, from a personal perspective, from a business perspective. Everything is here. Everyone is using these blocks to create these tools. This is the creativity that's innately within Notion itself. Okay, so thank you for that. I'm going to hand you back over to Randy to summarize, I suppose, what we've just seen here. And from there, then I think we'll take some questions. Randy, is that right?
Yes, that's right. Edward,
Okay.
did you have your...
It was just to say, and thank you so much, Brandon, as well, that the data you use for those, just so it's clear, is from our design challenge from this year with hundreds of submissions around the world. And so what we want to be doing is working more closely with Notion and with the AI to see, for us, these are all individual submissions. Many are from the groups of students, classes of students about their dream learning programs. And where it comes in with this co-design in the future of learning is we want to see how do these individual submissions contribute to a global picture of what young people are looking for in the future of education. And so this kind of tool, it's a way for us to dive a bit deeper into everything that's been proposed from this year. And that's what we want to build on further. So in your questions too, thinking of how this might connect to the future of education, for us it's bringing together the sum of our parts to see how we can build out new visions, particularly for education as well. So just the vision.
No, thank you, Edward. So I think I would like for you to sort of start considering questions you may have, but I'll also probably give you some prompts maybe. But before I go into the other points I'd like to make, I'm wondering, Brendan, would you be willing to try something on the fly with me here, and we'll see if it works?
Yeah, it wouldn't be a demo unless something went off the rails, Randy. So absolutely, yeah, we can try something on the fly. No problem.
I think it might be fun and somewhat magical if we could try to look at AI summaries of the submissions.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take a submission at random and I'll take your direction then, Randy. Okay. So let's open, I think the first one inside here. And let's have a look at the details here. Okay. Right. Let's open this up more widely. And what we might do is we might just change the layout here to make it a bit more clear. So once again, another thing that we can do, of course, is we can customize our layouts within the page here. Let's apply these to all pages here. So now we have a nice submission here around Medi Talks and Medi East Clubs. So this is about integrating various aspects of medical education, public health awareness, ethical considerations, and the role of technology in the modern healthcare system. So we have a nice entry here with quite a broad description. So Randy, over to you. What would you like me to do?
That's actually a good way to show some connected parts of things. So right now in this moment, we're looking at a specific part of a database, right? We have one record, or we often just call one page, from a big library of content. But if we make some changes to the structure of that content, it'll apply to everything in the database. So it's a really powerful entry point. Sometimes you want to look at things globally. Sometimes you're looking at them more locally. And you might have an idea locally. You can change it there, make it apply globally. Right? So we're kind of matching somewhere the software behaviors to how our brains work sometimes. So this local idea I have is, gosh, that's a lot of text. I wish I had like a really convenient and easy summary of that. So I probably go down and say add property. Should be able to add an AI summary. And we'll auto update on page edits. This is great. And so we can also say autofill all pages.
Let's do that.
So by saying autofill all pages, the AI's created this one, kind of 2-sentence summary here, which is great. So I have a new part of this database, and we see it summarized. But if we go back to the database itself, there'll be a new property that's been added to every entry. And in the background, the AI is actually going through and summarizing every one of my pages so that information is available. And we're all kind of familiar with AI summarizing text at this point, or something that in and of itself isn't the novel part. It's more the convenience of the entry point, the doing the back sort of offline processing for you while you're busy doing other things. And now it becomes available here, and it will auto update as I change that description or modify this project over time. Things like this AI summary are continuously updating themselves. So we can choose to display that AI summary on a different view or different presentation, as Brandon shared previously. So just a couple clicks there, we have that kind of magic happening. Maybe we could try one more. Now that we're in this database view, can we just add another property? And maybe we'll try AI keywords.
Okay.
Same concept. We're basically saying, hey, Notion AI, do this work for us across all these things. But in this case, it's going to derive keywords out of every entry. So we know that LPI has themes around sustainability, engagement, etc. But there may be a number of other themes that unite some of this work. We might be able to identify interest areas across participants, maybe common themes, maybe projects that could be clustered together or grouped together. That'd be an idea I have that I want to do. That kind of data analysis may be problematic, or maybe I need to go ask a colleague or a friend or someone else for help who likes to slice data that way. But here we could have the AI sort of writing keywords in the background. If we can see
that's a nice idea, Randy. By the way, this is unscripted. By the way, don't worry. This isn't part of an amplified thing, but it's a nice idea because we have the keywords right here. What we could also do, Randy, is we could create another chart based on keywords. So we could then see very, very quickly, if we can find the keywords here, what the keywords look like and what the most popular ones are. So we can see here then, of course, public health awareness as a keyword is across 3 different entries. innovative is across three. So now we're grouping, and of course we have some with no AI keywords, but at the same time they're working through them. So it's nice to see the fact that we can then, I suppose, as you were saying, Randy, create another grouping inside here and work on that grouping, or maybe work together based on these keywords.
Maybe one last, this is just a quick view change. Maybe we can change this view to be grouped by.
Okay. Yeah.
And it allows us to see.
How would you like to group it by?
Yeah, keywords. Let's try that one.
Let's try that one. Okay.
Now this, Rhonda and I are just, kind of jamming here in front of you. We use the jam terminology a lot at Notion. We like to think about work and we're like playing jazz. So here we are, kind of like one of us leaning forward, one of us leaning back, kind of like handing it off. That feels pretty familiar to us, and in some ways that spirit is inside the software we built as well. It really enables that kind of behavior. So while it's sort of populating and grouping these, I want to point out a couple of a couple of points here that have to do with time and how we behave, and I think it's like relevant to your work. So the example we're showing you is from submissions from the design challenge itself, which have been collected over a long period of time. And then there's a moment in which they were stopped, right? The entries are done. And here we have this fixed data set. And then a little bit of time has passed. We're gathered here in the room, and in the matter of a few minutes, we're gonna slice that all up and look at it different ways, and that becomes helpful to us. But because this was so easy for us to do, and this is where you have to kind of just open your mind a little bit around the software. It didn't take us much to do it. We sat down with some data on a kind of a blank slate. We could do this with anything in real time, whether we have the information or not. And so this is something that I think we really try to extend some of our own learnings in building the software and how Notion operates to others. Typically, you may sit down in a meeting or a group session and something. You need to prepare a number of materials. You need to prepare this kind of work and thinking to then share it with others to then get feedback. But when you have a level of comfort with the tools and the tools are so flexible, you can really use them in real time all the time, right? And so sitting down with a group of people or inviting someone into a Zoom meeting, there's the opportunity, because of the efficiency and the flexibility of the tool, to kind of do anything you want, that you can riff, you can sort of jam, you can improvise and think through things together on the fly. And it's easy, it's fast, it's essentially free. Like, it's very, any of this activity is very, very low cost. And it's also very low risk. You can undo it. You can just duplicate the page and try it again. We can copy this whole database very quickly right here. I can send you a different URL to that different database. Here, you try it. You slice up that data different ways. And every time that we present these things differently, like Brendan's done here with everything's grouped by its AI generated keyword, which is pretty cool. We didn't have that 5 minutes ago. These are all just views on the same information. We can keep adding more views. We can hit that plus sign 20 times if we want. Let me try another chart. What if I want to try this thing? Very low risk to try things. Very, very flexible. And so I think if you keep that mindset, it becomes easier and easier to imagine how you not only use something like this to store and present information, but to really work with its working material itself. It is the medium by which we might create and build things. And the more playful we are about it, the more we might also discover things while using it. So it's not necessarily determined, sort of deterministic, like I have an outcome I'm trying to achieve and the tool is easy and so I achieve it quicker. It can do that. But also that I'm not sure what I might want to achieve. I have some information, I have some possibilities. And by playing and trying and experimenting with it, you may happen upon or discover things that you might not have discovered otherwise. And that's very difficult to do when software feels rigid, where it feels like it's only built for one purpose. It's not really play material. So I think that's a really key thing I want you to take away. On the surface, you may say, oh, we looked at some databases and some charts and some pages. I know those things. It's just the layer underneath, the principles of both the simplicity and the modularity that allow it to become more of a playground than a tool. Yeah.
Could we try something that might not work, Randy? I just have an idea there about we have a grouping here for public health awareness, and we have, you know, 3 really nice entries inside here. I'm wondering if we can use AI to, based on these entries, taking inspiration from these entries to create an entry. I wonder if it's going to work or not. Would you allow me to do that? Do we have time?
Yes. That's it.
Okay. Let's see how it looks. So I could say something like, based on the data in our sandbox submission database, create a summary. Maybe not a summary. Create a document based on all entries with the AI keyword of public health awareness. This mightn't work, guys. It's more of a case of, to Randy's point about how we tend to work inside within the organization itself, it's more of a case of trying things, seeing if they work or not. Okay, well, it's done something here. Okay, can we combine these entries in any way? Okay, so what it's done is it's taken these 3 entries under public health awareness. It's taken the layout that I wanted it to take, and it's created almost a hybrid of all of these 3 entries. They might be wildly different in some ways, but it's found the commonalities and it's taken these down and broken it down. So what we now have is if we think about the brainstorming aspect and imagine us all coming together in a room trying to find consensus or trying to come up with something that we all agree on. What Notion AI has done is it's created a starting point for us. So based on the theme of public health awareness, it's taken the entries and it's now said that, you know, we can break it down into the broad strokes of public health education, educational innovation, community impact, and we can also break it down into these headings of integrated health, of shared program benefits, etc. So we can easily do then, of course, is save our page directly into our sandbox submissions and create another submission right there. So very easily, to Randy's point again, by having that sense of play and by having that sense of trying things, we can create new types of data and create new views directly within Notion itself. Okay. Thank you for that, Randy. Thanks for indulging me.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, it's something that we're finding, and it's fun. I'm sure you're experiencing this too. I'm now imagining we're all sitting in a room and we're watching someone live do a version of prompt engineering, right? Really, this was not an activity we were spending our time doing 18 or 24 months ago. But that's not only sort of legitimized, like we've accepted as a form of behavior, but can be quite productive, right? Quickly normalized. As we work through technology like this ourselves, sort of layering in the AI capabilities of Notion AI, we like to say that the material is changing almost every day, right? So there are things that we attempt to do that are not possible to do, that become possible to do only a matter of days or weeks later. And so it almost demands of us in our own work an acceptance of trying things and seeing what happens, sort of breaking the system and then fixing them. I think now, because we have about 15 minutes left, would be a great time to transition to questions. Keeping it on theme. Rhonda's prepared this questions form, which any of you can access by just using this QR. So we can collect your questions quickly in a database. And we'll use that to source our questions right here to keep ourselves organized.
So we'll just give a bit of time there to take the QR code now. Alternatively, of course, feel free to add your questions to the chat as well, given the fact that we have time constraints here, but please try the QR code and we'll see if we can add questions. There are 2 entries right here, just the question and your name, and from here then we do our best to answer them. Okay, so I'm just going to have a look at the database quickly here to see what's going on. So I'll keep this open here, and in the background, I'm going to see if I can get these questions up.
Just to say, we can extend for a few minutes as well, so it'd be lovely if there are a couple of verbal questions. If you want to raise your hand, then we might be able to take a couple of those too, as people are filling them in. Eric, did you just want to ask?
Thank you for this presentation. I have a question. Most of the companies want to use structured data. They have a lot of issues about data security, having like specific views, limiting the exposure of the data you show there. So how do you handle that in real time?
Rhonda might be able to add more layers of detail, but a few levels of this we can think about. One is you have account level permissions who can access your what we would call a team space or a workspace inside Notion, the area in which we work. Those are all behind normal, sort of authentication permissions. One can choose to publish your pages publicly if you wish, but that's completely optional. It's not the default state, although it becomes helpful for certain kinds of communication or collaboration. The second is at what we call a page level. So each one of those entries we see, you can actually set permissions for pages and defaults for those. So databases can be default view only. They can be default accessible only to particular members of a space. And then you can group, actually this gets a bit sophisticated, but you can group converse into different subsets of groups and give permissions, access permissions and kind of permissions to only certain. These are fairly standard, approaches. Those exist. The other important, related point is that for two things. For Notion AI, all of the data that is accessible to Notion AI sort of within your workspace to inform answers or queries or generation isn't used to train third-party models. And the third-party models don't have access to them for storage or anything. So we have agreements with all of the LLM providers that we use to they don't index or store any of our data to train models. One question.
Yeah, so we saw how AI or Notion AI was like summarizing the data sets and also finding key points and stuff like that. So is that where you see Notion is headed, like how AI can help humans do like the easier stuff while we collaborate with other people to improve our world?
It's a really good question. I think the short answer there is yes, but there's nuance to that. So we were very careful, and this ties into a question around that came in the database as well, which was around the challenges we face with integrating AI. Where we see AI fitting in is it supplements and helps the human rather than replaces the human. And we were very careful in the design of our approach to AI to make sure that it fit in as seamlessly as possible with the things that Notion does well, rather than completely replacing things. When you saw the summarization right there, it's an example, I think, of how someone can go about their day-to-day work, but then we're thinking about how we can save that person time. We're thinking about the fact that this person might have reams upon reams of documentation or pages that they need to read within Notion. How do we save that person time? So it's not a case of how do we, replace that person. It's more of a case of how do we save them time here. Where we see it going is probably around a lot more automation. We're working on a lot of different things in the background here to that end, but certainly from an AI perspective, the whole idea is that it supplements the things that Notion does well, rather than replacing anything or anyone. I don't know if Randy, you want to add to that or not.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would add is there's a, let's see, I'm trying to think of a good metaphor for what I'm about to describe. Today, if you use a general AI tool to help supplement some knowledge or information or summarize some things, largely they look external, right? Sort of all information available out on the internet, you might say, right? As a source. Or you might provide it some context. Here's some text that I wrote, or here's a file, some files I have, refer to these. We've experienced that. There's this missing in between that I think until we experience it, you don't quite consider it. Wow, that's really powerful, which might be what you or your colleagues or classmates or project participants, a bunch of shared knowledge you have somewhere that the internet doesn't know about. And you only know about your personal version, and that's the sort of context you have. But you don't know your friend, your coworkers, your siblings, your family's other information. So it's this shared local context. So it's kind of like everything in this room, maybe as a metaphor, right? Like Wikipedia doesn't really know about the stuff in this room, really, but it can tell us great things about this neighborhood. So there's a little bit of a parallel. And so with something like Notion AI, we can choose the threshold with which it refers to other information to be helpful. Right? And so what becomes really, really powerful in a collaborative environment is all of the other information with the people I'm collaborating with, which isn't really part of world knowledge yet. Yeah. And so that middle area, you might imagine everything we just had in our sample database. Right? Or other things like that. You may come up with some ideas on the weekend, some other friends are working on something, like we're running this project, maybe with people around the world, but it's in progress. Where does that live in a shared environment in which we can also work with that material? So the more information you put in something like Notion, you can kind of choose to reference only we know, choose to reference sort of world knowledge, or both. And some of these things become quite powerful if you get clever about your, what you choose to do with it. So you might refer to a popular psychological study that happened at a medical school in the 70s. You might say, how might the results of that be applicable to this thing I'm working on right here with my colleagues? Interesting way to kind of connect these two worlds together and sort of find new opportunities and new discoveries. So it's an enhancement. We see those as really as enhancements. It'd be very, very difficult to get to that level of matching of concepts without some help. Just another example.
We have some really nice questions coming in via the forum, Randy, and I think given the purposes of time here, we'd be remiss not to try and answer them as much as we can. So would you mind if I just share the forum here and I can talk through the questions and we can see if we can answer them? Really interesting things here.
In fact, you can help us only if necessary, but I feel like you may be able to help us create good context or choose maybe which questions may be most relevant to the broader audience, since you have a little more experience there. We're happy to run top to bottom.
Well, I think there's that first one on co-designing your roadmap. I mean, co-design is one of the key bricks, the co-design in learning and youth. And so perhaps you could go for that one. How do you look at co-designing with your users as well? Thank you, Daniel, for the question.
Yeah, Robin, do you want me to? I'll start this one if you have anything to add.
No, absolutely. Fire away.
When we think about sort of collaborating with our users, or we really refer to it as our community, which we think is a more sort of a generous, maybe like human term. There's kind of low bandwidth, infrequent ways that are actually really powerful for us, where we interact with the community on platforms like X or Instagram, or we sort of listen to what people are saying and try to engage with them. There's a really good signal. It's not complete signal, of course, but we find that really valuable and helpful. People share the things they They'll share things they've done that we didn't imagine you could do, and then we say we can make it easier. That's a bit of like listening and community engagement. Those largely make their way into, you'll see some common themes, make their way into internal databases we have that are often tagged, categorized, and sorted. We will even do exercises. There's an example in the form that Robin has up. There's this column here that says upvote, which is this tiny little automation where people can go in and sort of indicate their preference or desire for that thing to be addressed, whether it's a problem or a solution you propose. So that's one path. We sort of collect information in a broad way and have light touch interactions with the community, aggregate things, prioritize them, and decide what to do. Sometimes we actually sort of have almost like jam sessions with customers on the fly to sort of see what they might imagine or need or want to create. And we'll use those things to inform longer term roadmaps and planning. We certainly have a master vision a bit of the intent of what we are doing, but the ways in which we get there and the sequencing in which we get there is largely built upon what people want right now or next. So we can really help deliver new value to them while stepping our way towards the future we wish to deliver it.
Okay. Thanks, Randy. I think your point there about the community and the unusual and the special thing about Notion is the community, the people that use it. We have an extremely strong community who are very passionate about using Notion, and they're not quiet in giving us feedback in relation to what they'd like to see. And this kind of feeds into the next question here from Daria around, have you already managed to incorporate a very needed undo button? So at the moment, Daria, you do Command Z or Control Z to undo, of course, but it's a good idea. So it's something here that we can take away and we can discuss internally to see if we can do something around that. Is there an easy and simple way of integrating all the information we have been collecting on Salesforce and moving it into Notion? Soon is what I'll say about that, Daria, without overstepping any boundaries here, but absolutely that will be something that we're actively working on, and it's something that you're going to see soon. And then how do these designs differ from Airtable? What is special about Notion in this battle? I think they're two different things. I think that while they have similar features, I think that if you look at who uses Notion and the breakdown of users, types of users that use Notion, they're very different to Airtable. I think from an Airtable perspective, you're seeing a lot of enterprise level users. You're seeing a lot of people who, from a business perspective, are using Airtable as this database-driven tool. But I think from a Notion perspective, what's different from us is that while also being a database-driven tool, we also allow users to unleash their creativity and create templates and create standalone things. I know I'm rattling through questions quickly here, but I just thought I'd do it in any case. Here's a good one for you, I think, Randy. We might wrap up after the next few, but was Lego an inspiration when building Notion? And more importantly, I suppose, how do you go towards versatility without losing simplicity, especially when onboarding new users?
Great question. Well, one, yes, and I'm someone who's very in the know, maybe in Notion more. But yeah, Lego features prominently in how we think and talk about Notion. Partly, I mean, there's many applicable parts of the metaphor, but they relate to the second part of your question. One is the modularity, right? There are many different Lego parts, but all of the elemental bricks, right, are fit within the same system that can connect to each other in sort of numerous ways. And in fact, we have a way we sometimes talk about pieces that don't fit. We call them horsies. And you might imagine in some Lego kits, just a piece that's really like a custom molded piece of hard plastic that really only serves one purpose. We call it a horsey. You kind of like click it on top. It fits in the system, but it really only is there to be a horse. Although people do creative things with this as well. We're really using the sort of the rectilinear blocks, in our metaphor of how things are reconfigured. But we know that something like the Lego system in Notion as well can start out very, very simple. There's just basically a cube, and you can stack those cubes up, and now you can give yourself a tower. There's a simple text block. You can start writing a paragraph. You can write another one. You can write another one. You stack them up, and you have yourself a page, like a page of prose. but they get much more sophisticated from there, and they serve purposes that go from, very elemental play to, give me a fairly realistic and sophisticated, model of oh gosh, no, I can't think of it. Star Wars fans will hate me. A very sophisticated large model of like a complex design. Exactly, sure. And thank you, Joy. Enterprise. Well, with Star Trek, all good. And so there's a range of possibilities across that sort of metaphor. And so we think, how do you make things both versatile and simple? Our belief is that while at first it may be slightly challenging to discover things, we're always working on ways to discover and introduce new things. The best way to understand is through using it yourself, kind of building up the complexity over time, rather than presenting people with a lot of complexity and then needing to explain it. We found that like the learning by doing is a very powerful approach. And in it, people often have these little surprise moments. If you use Notion a lot, you may have already had this moment, what we call the slash menu. Like if you just hit slash on your keyboard, it's like opening up a door into a magical universe. There's this giant library of all of these kinds of blocks you can use that do many, many, many different things. And so we are trying to sort of create these magic doors. There's a few others, and make them discoverable at the right time. I want to be mindful. There's one other thing we want to share with you. How much more time do we have? Evan?
Just 2 or 3 minutes.
2 or 3
So we
minutes,
can
okay.
do then a group photo.
Yeah, oh, and a group photo. Okay. Well, thankfully, we have the ability to answer questions and share that back out. We can easily answer them and publish them on a Notion page. So we can happily do that and share the URL afterwards. What I wanted to share with you all is just a couple of the ways we have available so that available to you if you're not already aware that Notion is available for students. So we sometimes, jokingly, but there's truth in all jokes, like to say that Notion is the choice of the next generation. It's something we say internally. And part of that is just supporting, supporting youth, supporting students in, having those discovery experiences with our products. So all student organizations get, I don't want to say 100% off, get free access to our Plus plan, which unlocks and enables all the features like we shared with you today, and unlimited members can have access to those groups. So we'll share this URL out to you, and you'll be able to sign up there and provide some information about your student group, and that's an easy process. Also, students and educators all get free plans if you just use your institutional email address. Yeah. And if for any reason your institution isn't part of and it's a part of our database, you just contact us and we'll make that. I'm happy to provide that. There's also campus leaders in many institutions, universities who are really just lovers of Notion, who are happy to sort of have in-person sessions and onboard people to share things. And we have a directory of those. This is either an invitation to take advantage of them or to participate in creating and starting your own. And then finally, we have these great starter packs and links to things that might be particularly relevant to students, free templates and themes, other examples of how things are being used in certain contexts. And the beautiful thing about Notion is when you see someone else using it very often, you can just clone how they're doing it and get started right away. So with that, we'll say thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much as well, Brandon. We also have some lovely messages in the chat from different people. I'm going to put it up for the group here. So thank you for the meeting. So informative, I remember seeing. And there's also some lovely shout outs for some other sessions happening at the festival over the next couple of days as well. So do check that too. But without further ado, I think we'd love to showcase as well those of you patient enough to join online. So we're going to go into gallery view and invite anybody in the room that wants to join the group photo to come around the television so that we can show the strength of the international community. So anybody is very, very welcome. I'm just going to change the view.
So I do encourage Jim, Augusta, Carlos, if you feel able to join on. That would be wonderful. And we're going to take the picture around, so coming to the side of the television. Here we go. Yeah, we're going to try, we'll see if we can get a few of those to turn on cameras. We've got some other profiles as well. That's pretty good. A little bit closer. That would really help. Bring it in. Yeah, bring it in. Bring it in. Move it in. Some people, camera. Everyone, you have everyone. Look at the camera. People stop making noise. Taking pictures. Playing.
All right, thank you.
Thank you everybody online as well. Wishing you a brilliant rest of the festival too. Thank you, everybody.
That's what we need.
Yeah, we're just going to congregate those who are staying just around here, and then we will go in shortly.
Just for those who are still here in the room, to let you know, so the rest of the program starts at 3 down in the amphitheatre, so please do stick around. It's going to be a brilliant afternoon of events. Up until then, we do have a few people here who are very happy to take you around and show you a little bit of the building. So if those who are staff members can just raise your hand, or students. There we've got Ilya here, we have Francois, we have myself, we have Caroline. So that can be happening over the next 50 minutes or so. And over the course of the afternoon too, there will be a video interview booth led by Timothy, our colleague, just outside in the foyer by the amphitheatre. So you'll be able to share some of your dreams for the future of education down there. But come to any of the staff if you have any questions to orientate yourself. Okay, thank you very much. If anyone wants to do a tour, if you can just raise your hand if you'd like to see around. So perhaps if you come over to this direction, and then we'll split out the group. How many can we fit on the roof at once? Okay, so this includes the panoramic of the roof. We will send pictures to everybody online as well. Thank you so much, Anna, Moses, David, Osman, Abdulaziz, Augusta, for sticking around.
Sure, you can leave it at the entrance. It's probably the best.
At the entrance?
Yeah.
Right. The security.
Okay, thank you.
I've recorded.
Just say that, this is the baby
It's
packet.
it's auto.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you
Don't need them yet,
pretty
though.
sure it automatically saves, but you
You never
can
know. May not be ready.
So, I'd love to join for a I'll be right back after I get my video.
With pleasure. So before you guys leave, so we've got 3 of us, Caroline for a tour. We maybe be able to be a bit of a bigger group as well.
Yeah, but I do I leave the door. Leave